In his own best-selling autobiography, My Life, Bill Clinton dedicated a section to the first bus ride. He explicitly recounted the midnight arrival in Utica, describing how the sheer scale of the crowd waiting in the dark completely stunned the campaign staff and served as the emotional turning point where he personally realized they were going to win the presidency. That's right, Utica, Ohio. The first stop was the Brandstool Farm to address local citizens and in particular farmers. Then to the area between the Four Pines Hardware and the Pioneer Restaurant for a bigger crowd. It all started with a phone call from Ohio Democratic Chairman Gene Brandstool to Licking County Democratic Chairman Rick Lanthorn asking if Utica could ensure a crowd of 200 people if the Clinton campaign kickoff bus tour made a stop in our town on its way from New York City to St. Louis, Missouri. Rick told them no problem. Little did the three people behind the scenes who would be preparing for the crowd of 200 all of the sudden see a campaign visit keep growing and changing and growing to an estimated crowd between 5,000 and 10,000 people by the time things were all said and done. Here's the story of the three men who rolled with the punches and were integral in making it happen.
I'm Rick Lanthorn.
Larry Friesel.
I'm Steve Little.
Okay, I'll start from my perspective. I first was notified that by Mr. Lanthorn and Gene Brandstool there was a chance that the Clinton Gore may stop in Utica. And from there it went crazy. We didn't know what we were doing. I don't think any of the three of us knew exactly what we were doing. We was basically doing what we was told, and it ended up the adventure of a lifetime. I was telling you earlier, there was a couple from Alabama, I think it was, traveled with the circuit. And Tommy Babb gave them a spot to put their motor home. And every morning when I would get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't tell these guys because I didn't want to share, but he would have a breakfast sandwich for me and a hot tea and honey. And he said, that's the way you're having to talk, that you're going to be able to talk. And I said, well, I talk all the time. And I think if you got somebody that's going to talk all the time, it's going to be a school teacher and a small town mayor. But I've said a lot of people, because some of them were parked here at 4 miles away. State Patrol wasn't very happy with us. We didn't cause it, but State Patrol wasn't very happy with us. And we had some protesters, and I will have to say that we handled it the right way. The right to life people had some things that was a little off color, and I went to them and I used the philosophy of a firm hand and a velvet glove, and I explained to them, okay, I understand your point and I'm not against what your point is, but will you guys come back when these little kids see it and explain it to it what that is? You're carrying a baby fetus around in a jar. And they said, no. I said, well, that's very offensive. Whether I'm for it or whether I'm not against, you're going to offend a lot of people. You're not going to help your cause. And they said, we'll put that away and just pass out literature. And I couldn't have asked for anything better than that. When it came up to the day of the event, and of course, Mr. Clinton and Mr. Gore were late, but they brought along their entourage. Mitson Baum was there. John Glenn and his wife were there. And it goes on and on and on. And to me, that was a very rewarding outfit. And we started off as a Secret Service. They knew what step you made before you made it. And they could go up. We all had little things on it that nobody else could see and they know, but as soon as you hit the bottom step, they showed up and said, okay, you go on.
Soft
pen. And they really did check things, because my mom and dad lived in West Virginia, still do, but my dad's gone. And they went to them and cleared their security. That's how far they went, because they didn't have background on me here because I'm not from here. And then, but the whole thing went well. It was very frustrating. And I thought the minute it was over, oh, thank God it's over. And I realized it was just about to begin, because we cleaned up stuff. We didn't clean up stuff. We found stuff, unbelievable stuff. We didn't clean the streets up with brooms and give people baskets and sacks to put the stuff in. We cleaned them up with a backhoe and dump trucks. And we don't know how many times they went to the landfill to get rid of that stuff. And it was just unbelievable. So that was my experience with it. I enjoyed it, enjoyed working with these two guys. We didn't have a team, but we soon formed a team and we operated together. So that's my input into it.
Well, I'll take it from there how it kind of started when Gene Branstall called me up. First person I called was Steve, Larry, and then I called my brother, got a hold of one of our key people in North, Dorothy Brown.
Mm-hmm.
We had, it just kept growing. They originally said Bill Clinton, and then he called me back and said, it looks like Hillary's coming too. And about an hour later, he called. I said, "Hey, Al Warren Tipper's coming." The next day, it was John Glenn and Mensenbaum, and then they added Dick Celeste and Mary Ellen Withrow and Lee Fisher, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And it just progressively got bigger and bigger. And it was funny because Dick Celeste calls. He wanted me to get a table for 8 at Watts' restaurant reserved for him. I said, well, I have to get a hold of Bob Curtis on that. I knew they didn't reserve tables. So I called Bob Curtis. I said, ain't chance of getting a table reserved at Watts' restaurant for Dick Celeste and, all these people. And I told him, it's going to be there. He said, well, they don't reserve tables at Watts', but I'll go down and talk to Steve. And then he calls me back and said, well, Steve said he'd take care of it. He said, kind of reluctantly, but Steve treated him great when he was there and did pictures and everything. Watts is a great guy too. And then I got a hold of Little, and Little started mechanics going on his end. And, he knew how to get a hold of people and talk to Larry. And we had, I don't know what, Steve can tell you what all he had involved in it, but it turned out to be a pretty big event. And it was, I picked the pioneer. I talked to my brother Don, and Don, I told him the criteria they needed. And he said, about the only place in Utica he could think of as a pioneer. And I said, well, let me go ask Doug. So I asked Doug, and then I know we talked about at the first meeting, the Secret Service thought they could find someone better. They could find a better place and talk to somebody who would give them something. They wanted private property. And they come in, and they had mud and dirt on their shoes and everything. And they went over Utica, and they come back to, we thought the Pioneer would be fun.
I remember that.
So I said,